The Turks have a track record of doing stuff like this in the past. They've done this with the Armenians in the First World War, and for decades they have been suppressing the Kurds in their eastern regions. A huge chunk of the eastern part of Turkey is majority Kurd. This is why they're afraid. They do not want the Kurds to have autonomy in Syria, because if they do have autonomy in Syria, they will be helping the Kurdish brethren in Turkey that are being oppressed. So, what they've done is one of the Turkish offshoots, one of the rebel groups that the Turks have been backing, has mutilated the corpse of a female Kurdish fighter, and they've done this, and they've also recorded doing this, which has also drawn the ire of the whole world, because this is something that ISIS used to do. Now that the Turkish-backed militias are doing this, they're seen as almost the same as ISIS. This is a huge PR disaster for the Turks. So this is what they were saying in the video. "Man, she's pretty," said one of the Syrian fighters, being heard saying it in a shocking video posted last week on social media. The pretty woman is Barin Kobani. That's the name they gave for the female Kurdish fighter for the People's Protection Group. Those were the female fighters fighting ISIS a couple of months ago. Now are fighting the Turkish invaders that are invading Syria, which is against international law. And within hours of the horrifying film on the internet, the Barani became the symbol of the inferno of the war. Now, this is also a huge disaster for the Turks, because it's making them out to be the bad guys, the villains, basically. And they're attacking women. And no matter what race or religion you are, when someone attacks women, they're going to be looked at as the bad guys. These aren't Turkish soldiers, but they aren't Turkish soldiers. They're militiamen that are being funded by the Turks, because that's one of the ways that the militias survive. They need funding. And the Turks are using them as the mercenaries to fight the Kurds. And these mercenaries are doing these atrocities, which are becoming a blowback for the Turks. Although they're Syrian Arabs, they've adopted the ideology that the Syrian Kurds are the terrorists, which is completely nonsensical, because the Kurds have been fighting ISIS, and they've been upholding the human rights as well as the governance in that area. And the only reason that those militias exist is because the Turkish money has been funding them. If it weren't for the Turkish funding them back during when the Syrian civil war started, they would have dissipated like the other militias. The only militias that are still active are the ones that are being funded by an outside group. That's also a reason why that's why a lot of these terror groups are still active, because you're having outside funding or some source of revenue. Now, the relatively united force of Kurdish units, which is women fighting alongside men, are also all female units, like the Women's Protection Group, which have considerable inroads with the Syrian Kurds, who in turn have adopted parts of the communist and anarchist theory that women have a role in the battle in Syria and Iraq against the Islamic State. Fighters are nothing new in the Kurds. They neither are equal status of men, and neither is equal status for men and women, not only in the battlefield but in civilian life. Now, one of the reasons that ISIS was very afraid of these Kurds is because they believed that if they were killed by a female fighter, they would go to hell, as opposed to be killed by a male fighter. So they did not want to be killed by a female, to say the least. So another thing is that these are Kurds, which is a different ethnicity than the Arabs that have power in the region. The Turks have a vested interest in keeping the Arabs in power, because in that way they would be allies in keeping the Kurds divided. the Turks, the Iranians, and the Arabs that are in Syria and Iraq have a vested interest in keeping the Kurds divided. Because if the Kurds unite into one culture, like northern Iraq, like Kurdistan in Iraq tried to do when they had the referendum, if they had succeeded, that would have cascaded into the other regions, and more Kurdish people would have wanted independence. And what this has done is this has made her not into like just a martyr for the Kurdish people. This has also made her the martyr for the greater war, the war in Afrin, and this has made the Turks seem like villains. And since that Arab culture, which elevates the purity of women and connects its purity to the honor of men, has been turned a woman's body into an ultimate weapon, which designed to humiliate the men and thereby caused disintegration of society by drowning it in shame. Shame which has pushed women to commit suicide in order to be cleansed of it. This is another reason that the Arabs like to attack the Kurdish women, because this is the ultimate like degradation. This is the ultimate way they could shame their enemy, like, hey, I could do this to your women and you can't protect them. That's why rape is used as a weapon in wars. But this isn't rape. This is close to it, though. This is complete degradation of a woman, and that doesn't look good for the Turks. That makes them out to be the villains. Alright, so the heresy is not that they're not Muslim. They're Muslims, and there's some Christian Kurds, but they're not Arabs. So the Arabs, this is why the Turkey's attacking the Kurds, because they're non-Arabs. This is what ultimately is Turkey's goal. They want to keep the status quo. They want to keep the Kurds divided into 4 separate nations. Now, if the Turks were to unite and assert their independence by having a Kurdistan, that would destroy a lot of the parts of many major countries. Turkey would lose 1/3 of its territory, and Iraq would lose its northern half. Iran would lose another chunk of its territory, and Syria would lose a little bit more of its territory. So these 4 countries are working together to stop Kurdistan from forming. One person. So there's this event has caused the Turks to become vilified because of because the militias they're backing has done this. The one person who doesn't answer to anyone any longer is Yazidi artist Nadia Bashir, who on her Facebook page displayed photos of herself with a bare breast and painted in red blood and holding a sign bearing the name of Barin Kubani, who with an olive branch next to it. The branch doesn't represent the peace of time. It's ironically named by the Turkish military operation. Bashir succeeded in escaping from the city of Sinjar in northern Iraq, where ISIS has begun occupying. Since she was being devoted to our art, it's a description of the war crimes committed against the Yazidi women. Every year, she posts her Facebook page and a photo of herself next to a stone monument to which the following is etched in black letters: Nadia Bashir, born on October 9th, 1990, not dead yet.